Got it. Behind me, I'm just gonna get it open.
What I did is Joel and we just went and pressed it, put the camera through it. It's a man of multi-talent. Full extension right there.
It is. Yeah. Thank you.
Right? Sure. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was like okay. I just wasn't sure. I think because not only was the ball, but also like really, I'm like that. No. I'm not on this level that just talk to Jared again. I hope he didn't mind that I assumed it was him.
Right.
Okay. I do not envy him. I'm like, oh.
And then if they don't, might not be resolved.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
okay.
No, he was tripping over my board.
Here's what you say.
Oh.
Way back in about what are you gonna do with her?
I always have to turn my sound off in case it.
Yeah.
Even when you turn it off, it's still ringing.
Oh. No.
And then they were like messaging me and then especially when we were driving. I'm not really here. You don't message me.
Oh,
It's already.
And no problem. I believe it's on this side. The plug-in on the very top one?
If we haven't had that before,
Yeah, you don't want to turn up messages or anything started.
Yeah, can we get started?
You can still plug it in.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So good evening. With the quorum being present, I call this meeting to order at 5:35 p.m. So our first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Yes. I propose, in light of all of our guests in the room, that we switch the order and do the Two Rivers presentation first before we do the mill levy override. So do that first. So then if people need to leave, they can. Perfect. Is there a second?
I second.
All vote for them? I would say all in favor. Yeah. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we'll change the agenda and we'll do the discussion for the Two Rivers charter application first. And then we'll have the presentation on the mill levy certification after that. So a thank you to our interpreter. And we'll open with Jasmine's name.
Thank you. So I actually forgot that it was going to be a super big meeting. So I, thank you all for being here for my reading. But this is a book that I received from a national nonprofit that I am a fellow at. It's called School Board Partners, and it's a book called Seats at the Table, and it's for school board leaders. And so I wanted to kick us off tonight with this foreword from a friend and mentor, Jacinto Ramos Jr. He was the president of the Mexican American School Boards Association. He's heavily involved in the Texas school boards, and this is a foreword on this book called Chica Poquito. This book is an unapologetic call to action. It's 2020, my friends, and time to put an end to the racism that has plagued our world for far too long. This summer, amid a pandemic that only widened gaps for socioeconomically marginalized children of color, the students of our public schools grappled with another hardship. They found themselves forced to process in a socially distanced way the senseless murders of George Floyd, Tatiana Jefferson, and Breonna Taylor by police officers, as well as the gunning down of Ahmaud Arbery by men who felt compelled to bar an unarmed black jogger from their neighborhood. Members of the Black Lives Matter movement mounted protests, marching with invigorated chants for justice and an end to racism. To make matters worse, our U.S. president showed little empathy, condemning protesters for the quick action and suggesting that there might be something we didn't see on tape from the senseless shooting of the unarmed Arbery. We must not be silent. We must stand together. I thank my sisters and brothers from so many state and national school boards associations, not only for their advocacy for our Black, Brown, and Indigenous children, but also for their willingness to add their voices to the chorus of persons willing to fight against oppression, discrimination, and systemic racism. I urge you to really listen to and meditate on their stories. We can be inspired by their vision of ways in which we can create change in our school system. As school board members, we can promise the largest body of elected officials in the nation. I invite you to lean into tough conversations and acknowledge that we are charged with the education of the students in our schools. We could shape future generations with a new set of values, and we can put in place the necessary policies to end discrimination and bring about equity in our school districts. I am not looking for allies. I am looking for disruptors and co-conspirators. This summer has pushed our country to a new reality, and we have only two choices: to be racist or to be anti-racist. For years, my personal motto has been así derechito, a Spanish phrase that challenges us to examine the direction in which the needle of our moral compass points. For centuries, our views on race and racism have been anything except así derechito. In a constantly changing world, we struggle to locate the North Star of racial justice, and we fail to unwaveringly progress towards anti-racism. Instead, we've allowed our systems, which are perfectly designed to attain the goals they achieve, to maintain the status quo, the existing sad state in which those systems find themselves. As a result, some persons enjoy unearned privileges, access, and institutional power, and other advantages based on their race, while others continue to be oppressed, disempowered, and disenfranchised. I invite you to lift your eyes, pull back the curtain, and see the ways in which racism has enshrined injustice in our school system. I challenge you to strengthen your muscle on race by learning to identify and dismantle those factors in your own school district that enforce and perpetuate it. I solicit your help to join us in being agents of institutional transformation by siding with those who have struggled against the weight of centuries. If not us, who? If not now, when? If not here, where? It's not for the sake of the generations who will come after us. Why? Let's get to work. Así derechito.
Thank you, Jasmine. I skipped our introduction, so obviously I'm figuring out how these run on the phone. So I don't know if we want to go back and do those and then.
We've done the table part because we have guests.
Okay.
Usually, oftentimes, we stand and circle up as a group.
Great.
And let everybody introduce themselves to spare people who actually want to do a whole group.
No, I think we can all introduce ourselves up here, and then we'll move on. So let me start. Kenny Revolver.
Sure. I am Kenny Teitner, and this is my first in-person board meeting, so glad to see a lot of people here.
Hi, I'm Maureen Stepp. I'm a school board member.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Natalie Torres, school board member.
Buenas tardes, Jasmine Ramirez, school board member.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Catherine Blumenberg, school board member.
Rob Stein, superintendent in the Roy Park Schools.
Catherine Cayo.
Nathan Markham, Chief Financial Officer.
Hannah Cole, Student and Family Services.
Rick Holt, Chief Academic Officer.
Jeff Gatlin, Chief Operating Officer.
Andy Godwin, Chief of HR. Thanks, everyone. So the next business in order tonight is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel and minutes. from previous board meetings. Tonight is the minutes from 11/10/2021 and 11/29/2021. Are there any corrections to the minutes or other items? Board members? There being no corrections, the consent agenda is approved as presented. So at this time, we are going to welcome members of the public who have signed up to address the board. At last check, we had 8 members sign up. And so I think we can get through all 8 members. We ask speakers, as always, to limit your remarks to 3 minutes or less so that we can accomplish the rest of the work that's on the agenda. We typically don't respond to public comment, but we will follow up if it's appropriate. And finally, please be aware that any personnel or individual student matters are considered confidential under Colorado law, and we require those discussions to take place privately in executive session. So, Angel Hernandez. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I was hoping I could take off my mask for projection.
Should have any feelings about that. Jeff, what do you think? You've been allowing that other
I
stuff?
don't think we have.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you don't allow any other stuff. I understand.
Well, I'll second first. Good evening, Board President Kohnberg and board members. My name is Untitled Chapter, and I'm currently a junior at Wilson University. I'm here today to express exactly how privileged community schools prepared me for my high school career. I started at TRCS in 4th grade when I first opened the stores. I continued with them up to 8th grade. During my time there, I was able to improve my Spanish, learn the necessary skills to join a higher level math class, and improve my ability to speak with large to small scale groups. As I anticipate you've heard, one of the primary goals of True Rivers is to ensure that all of the students are in some capacity bilingual in the Spanish language, so they can carry the skills of reading, writing, and speaking the language not only to high school, but beyond that society where having those skills will give them an advantage. I'm now fluent in Spanish, and having taken the classes at TRCS, I was able to move into Spanish for my freshman year, and later into Spanish language and culture my sophomore year. Another way in which True Rivers helped me in my preparation for high school was through their math curriculum. I was privileged of being accepted into the 9th grade level math class in my last year in school. And after learning subjects such as quadratics, construction, and basic trigonometry, I was able to enter Math 2 at GSHS. In fact, we're now for the new materials that we learned near the end of the school year at Wilson University. I would say that all students leaving TRCS should enter directly into Math 2. What I feel best prepared me, however, for the high school was the opportunity TRCS offers students through fundraisers, talent shows, and any other events in which students were given leadership roles. I was absolutely ecstatic when I was voted to be the 4th grade class representative. And after taking part in the fall fundraisers, Spanish Heritage Festival, and presenting my passage presentation, I established the ability to take charge in any given situation and coordinate information with the appropriate parties. Despite it sounding like a lot for an 8th grader, True Rivers made sure that we were well supported and that everything was accounted for by the date of the event. Freshman year, I became the class president. Sophomore year, I was the co-president of the Spanish National Honor Society and became one of the top mock attorneys in the GSHS mock trial program. Currently, I take part in mock trial, student council, Spanish National Honor Society, and people sports. And all of that thanks to what I learned at TRCS. Above all else, they provided my class with experiences that we remember to this day. They took us to areas such as Verde to learn about the potential of Lewis, to Melvin Valley to meet astronauts that are currently taking part in the Mars project, and to Mexico to learn about their rich culture and experience the beautiful sights that they have to offer. All of this would not have been possible without the dedicated teachers, administrators, community members, and parents. True Rivers reflects what is possible when we come together as a community, and I would not trade my experience for any other. Their addition to the law enforcement district will only come to benefit the law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to let folks folks know, maybe if you can hear me, if you're listening in through YouTube, that we're having some technical difficulties. Somebody just texted me, so I'm sorry. I know it's frustrating. Our tech team spent a couple hours trying to sort it out today, and apparently we haven't worked out the keys. So apologies now. I believe that these devices are recording pretty good audio, so those will be available after the meeting for people who want to hear it. But if you're trying to do it in real time, it's going to be frustrating. We're sorry for that.
Next, we have Jocelyn Kochabar.
My name is Jocelyn Kochmar. I do not live here. I am a long-time teacher employee for our Marlin Gonzalez High School. And I'm also a parent of two boys who go to the community school. And I'm also a Stewart school board member, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the board of the meeting. As a parent and a counselor, former counselor from the same. First, as a parent, I want to explain a little bit of what I appreciated, my children have appreciated from service, and why we chose to enroll there. My oldest son started at 6 years ago in first grade, and what really made him flourish was his size, the small private school. And it's grown since then significantly, but what I appreciate is that they've been able to maintain that sense of community, that tight-knit sense of safety that my son felt, and it allowed him to kind of come out of his shell and feel safe to make mistakes, safe to take chances, to raise his hand and volunteer, and he needed to start in a really small type community like that. But they've been able to maintain that over the years, which I really appreciate when I do that too. Also, they have transportation to Down Valley. We live in Newcastle, and so as you guys know, many families, most families, work farther up valley than they live. And so parents choose a school based on what fits their work schedules for dropping off and picking up and daycare and after school and all that stuff. And so oftentimes Glenwood tends to be a place that's kind of in the midst of that commute. And Stewart provides transportation, which helps us immensely in juggling all of that. I also was very interested in the more intensive Spanish exposure from a very young age. When my son was in first grade, he got math in Spanish every other day, or they alternated weekly. So those were my draws, I think, to it. But I really wanted to speak more specifically from my perspective as a former counselor at Untitled High School. I was at the high school for 17 years, and 7 of them were in the counseling office, where I got to help with the enrollment and the scheduling of all of the incoming freshmen. And I worked really closely with many of them, and many from two others, honestly, as well as all of the other peers who just reached us. And I think what that made me realize is that all the kids in our community are our kids. And there's so much overlap. There's, obviously the parents are part of the community, but the two of the community school, 7th and 8th graders travel to get in a participate in sports. So they're there well before they're ever in high school. 95% of students enroll with us in high school. And I can attest to everything that I said. I was a counselor. And
Time, if you could wrap up.
oh, sure, no problem. I would say lastly, 95% of the kids from Two Rivers go to GSA Center, and currently there's 123. So we are one, really. We're already intertwined, and there's a lot of overlap, and I think that makes sense.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next is Amanda Madden.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Madden. I'm currently a freshman at 7th Street High School, and I graduated from Two Rivers Community School. I've been there since I was in second grade, and year later. I was here by the teacher, Rossetti, and my Spanish teacher, Latoya, were two integral parts of my education and of my life. I am equal and straight comes to mind because supplements and the schoolers struggling up the community and these people's activities. I'm a passionate public speaker because of the ample opportunities presented, such as the After Issues Forum, that the Jewish that we competed in and won. The following year, I had an opportunity to discuss issues forum alongside presidents from the Mayor House. And the staff here is just amazing. And about these years, I really did like to love. Having the same teachers year after year really helped me build connections, which in turn made me enjoy my class more. Not only was multi-age classrooms and losing a good teachers for teachers, so the continuity and strong relationship, which benefited the overall community of students. And our strong place-based learning was a huge part of my education system. We took many field trips all throughout the valley and sometimes beyond our borders. Every year, we have visitors to Mexico where they use their Spanish, swim with whales, help baby sea turtles, and visit local forest. Some of the other field trips include going to a marsh habitat, Mesa Verde, Grand Canyon, Colorado City Hall, and in field festivals, monthly hikes, and rafting trips.
You could try to wrap up, that would be nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Students have been here for over 7 years and have grown into a valuable resource for our community. And everything tells us social work changes humanity students and should be part of the LA resource.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Marlin Gonzalez.
Hi. My name is Marlin Gonzalez, and I work with Dallas Center, and I'm the director of the Conference Program. And the objective of this program is to build a bridge between Latinos and their interest in developing for values with a consistent volunteers. In developing for values, consistent community volunteers in the classroom to support the students' learning. Volunteers increase their self-confidence, develop leadership, and create relationships with other members in the community, and they learn to navigate into the school system and advocate for their children inside the school. These volunteers strengthen the connection between the Latino families in the school, and the management will provide extra support to the students or in the classroom, particularly the students that have English as a second language, and they both work in a small group and give extra support to the kids with English literacy and math. We have found this school very support. We have worked with a lot of schools, but we really feel River Community School is really special. They are really community supporters, and we have worked with all our volunteers, and they always include our volunteers. At the present, we have 3 volunteers because we launched the program, but we normally have, this is one of the schools that have more volunteers, and we really have created a good relationship with the school, with the teachers, the mentors, and also the students. Mr. Dean is really involved in the staff with every meeting, and they're always open for feedback. And we interviewed a few parents, mentors, and this is how they feel about the school. They said, I feel very productive. I am able to help the kids in a small group and individual. I feel very involved with the teachers, and they include me in the activities, and they always talk to me about the lesson. And the same with the teachers, they love to have fun mentors in the school. And I have, for example, one of the teachers that I love my mentor. She loves me with the kids. She helps me with the kids, and she does a great job. And another say, it's a pleasure for me to have a person with diverse experiences. She does emotional work in class, and she helps. She's devoted to the team doing this class. So I really support this institution.
Thank you very much. Next we have Angela Roth.
I am a parent of two kids, and I'm also a vegetarian, right? I also sit on the board, and I'm going to take some time today to share some letters that we got from parents in Spanish. Hola, mi nombre es Norma Ponce. Tengo dos niños en la escuela de Children's Community. He pertenecido a esta escuela desde el primer día de que se abrió y he mirado la evolución académica de mis hijos. Sé que no ha sido fácil, porque dos de ellos llevan educación espacial. La paciencia y dedicación que han llevado los maestros es especial y, sobre todo, el compromiso de Jimmy, nuestro querido principal, que en momentos difíciles ha sacado a la escuela adelante. Como por ejemplo, el hecho de que sacó su licencia para manejar el autobús escolar, habla de que es un gran líder que no se deja vencer. Somos una comunidad muy unida y me encantaría que nos apoyan mucho. Gracias. Okay. Hola, mi nombre es Glenda Antonio. Tengo un niño en la escuela y va a primer grado. Lo que me agrada de la escuela es que le están apoyando mucho en lectura y escritura y mi niño excelente maestra. Y también lo que me gusta es que me vine a vivir a mi casa y no tuve que mover a mi niño de escuela. Gracias a que la escuela tiene transporte accesible hasta aquí y mi niño está muy feliz asistiendo en esta escuela y no quisiera cambiarlo. Me gusta mucho la enseñanza de la están utilizando. Gracias. Y las otras. Me he sentido más conectada con la escuela de Two Rivers cuando tenemos la herencia hispana. No solo de hispanos, sino más una comunidad diversa. La última vez me sorprendió ver a una niña anglo vestida de un traje típico y se vea súper hermosa. Lo disfruté tanto. Hola, mi nombre es Roxana Vázquez. Tengo mis dos niñas en la escuela, una de segundo grado y la otra de séptimo. Lo que me gusta de la escuela es la educación que brindan a los niños y que se preocupan mucho cuando un niño no va bien en sus materias. Se preocupan por el bienestar de los niños, también brindan un almuerzo fresco y saludable. Mis niñas dicen que están contentas con lo que comen y que las dos pueden ir juntas a la escuela. Para mí es una satisfacción muy grande, porque es la única escuela aquí que tiene elementary y middle school juntas. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Next is Nelson Juanica. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Nelson Monica. I'm with the United Way Ladder.
think it's very important for children to understand how, why the decisions that affect their lives are made. I'm trying to explain to Harlow why, if Two Rivers application is approved, her public school won't receive the same voter funds as other public schools in the district. She asked me a profound question. Why should my school be treated differently? Maybe you have an answer for her, because I don't. I voted in favor of ballot issue 5B. I voted in favor of the newcomers to this board. So did my wife. So did many of the parents in our school, their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles, the teachers at that school, and the staff of that school. That ballot measure asked us whether to increase our own taxes to benefit our public schools, and expressly indicated that certain of those funds were earmarked for charter schools. To most people, school districts are physical boundaries. Nobody has any understanding of this application process. Nobody reading that ballot measure, not even an owner of a 10-attorney litigation firm that specializes in this type of work like myself, would have thought that the increase in funds safeguarded for our charter schools wouldn't actually go to the biggest one of those schools, because it hasn't been authorized, whatever that means. I, like many others, feel cheated. It's hard enough to teach our children concepts of fairness and equality. It's even harder to do that when their own school stands to be treated unfairly and unequally. The charter and non-charter public schools in this district serve the same voters. They educate the same children. They're within the same physical district boundaries, and they face the same obstacles that ballot measure 5B was put into law to remedy. Just like other public schools in this district, Two Rivers faces and will continue to face staffing shortages. Just like the other schools, the teachers and staff at Two Rivers cannot afford to live in the community that they make better. That's wrong, but it wouldn't be as wrong as silencing the unmistakable intent of voters to remedy this exact situation by denying Two Rivers application and foreclosing it from receiving the funds the voters thought they were given. So when Harlow asks for one good reason why her public school should be treated differently from the public schools 300 yards down the road, when they face the same hardships, serve the same voters, and will at one point or another be populated by the same students, what do I tell her? You have the ability to do the right thing. And now that 5B has passed, you have the funding and the pathway to do it. Please approve Two Rivers application to officially be part of the district, as it has served and contributed to since its inception. Thank you.
Next is Carmina Woolley.
Good evening. So I'm Carmina Woolley, and I'm also a resident of Pleasant Springs. And I'm parent of two kids who attend CRCS. So a few years ago, when I was looking at the options for my kids to attend school in the area, it was between London Springs Elementary and Two Rivers. I attended the open houses, spoke with staff, spoke with students, and honestly, it was a really tough call because they shared the same goals, they had very similar learning styles. And to me, at that point, it really wasn't that big of a deal. What really made it balance out was K through 8. I thought it would be better for my kids to be one day. So their bodies were more developed. and so that's why I chose Two Rivers at the beginning. Since my kids have been attending Two Rivers, my experience has been quite positive. The faculty is very passionate and committed, and unlike my experience in school, all of it is passionate and committed. From the janitors to the school kitchen staff, teachers and assistants and nurses and volunteers, the administrative staff, especially everybody is passionate about what we do. But what shining through for me with Two Rivers is what happened at the shutdown. So everybody was trying to navigate the shutdown. What do we do? How do we go to virtual learning? And so we kind of fumbled through it, like everybody did. But shortly after we went to virtual, in the background, everybody was focused on, hey, do our students have what they need to be successful? So they were focused on making sure that all the students had access to the equipment they needed. So computers, to the internet that they needed, so the computers would work, so they could actually see the teachers teaching. There was also a shortage of caregivers, so they distributed caregivers to anybody in the community who needed them. And you know that's a dire situation. So, I mean, it just blew my mind that, you know, it really wasn't about speaking to those people who were intimate needs. It was, hey, you guys might have wants and desires, but we're really focused on making sure that everybody has what they need and is successful. So that really stood out. Then after the shutdown, after the shutdown, the school developed a plan for in-person learning because we realized that there were many valuable things that were lost without that in-person experience. So they took a risk. They got feedback from the school, from the community, from the students, and we decided to wear masks, to be in pods, where even though the experience was limited in person to, you know, a group of 20 or so, we accomplished the goal of having in-person learning almost the entire school. Anyway, my main point is CRPS is a valuable community. It's been a valuable community to me and so many others, and I can say this for the district as a whole, it's a community we love to have. So I hope that you do choose to consider approving the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last commenter is Deirdre Rippey.
I did not get educated for Two Rivers, so my public speaking is not I prepare a written statement. My name is Deirdre Rippey. I am a parent of 3 children who attend the Two Rivers Community School. I am also a middle school math teacher at Two Rivers. All I have to say is Two Rivers School is an exceptional public charter school. I have been teaching for over 16 years now, and I've taught at a lot of different schools. Two Rivers is by far the best school I've taught at. Our school has devoted, caring, hardworking, and exceptional teachers. At Two Rivers, it doesn't matter if you're a struggling learner, on an IEP, if you don't yet speak English, or just a little bit different. Our focus is to include you. You have a place at our school. And not only are we inclusive, we strive for rigor, relevance, and value in our tight-knit relationships. My children love going to school each and every day because the school challenges them in ways that make them excited to learn. They get out in the community and serve. They learn from community members, and they strive to make a change in our community. This is only a small part of the TBL platform that makes our school so unique. As a teacher at Two Rivers, my goal is to get every single one of my students to understand and appreciate mathematics, to value the art of problem solving, and to see the relevance of such in their daily lives. Along with every other single teacher at my school, hard work. We've learned to be flexible. We've learned from each other. We all aim to grow, to get better, stronger, and to be our best. We serve a very diverse range of students in our community, from parachutes all the way to adults. We are still a community school. Our students and our teachers deserve to have access to the taxpayer dollars that this community our community can stay strong. Include us, because inclusion is what community is all about. Our teachers, our students deserve it.
Thank you to everybody that took the time to come and speak. We were able to get through all the speakers tonight. We went a bit over our time to do so. We also just want to thank everyone that submitted written comments. We have those and we read those, so we're several more of those. So, thank you all. At this point, we will move on to the Two Rivers Community School application for district authorization. So, over to you.
Yeah, so I think I wrote a more detailed memo, so I'll just make a few overview comments. Kelsey will talk about the staff review, and I think Jamie has a presentation on the school. We'll do it in that order. Jamie, come on up if you want while we get started. State law, I think, creating the notion of charter schools in Colorado was passed in about 1992, I think. So we have about a 30-year track record in Colorado with charter schools. And essentially a charter school is a charter or a contract between a school district and a board, usually a group of parents or community members or community organization, who want to start a different kind of public school, but not a completely different kind of public school. It has to serve the community. It has to be open to all students. It has to provide services like special education. It can't be exclusive, unlike actually some district schools. It's not allowed. It has to admit by lottery if there's more students or families who want to attend the school and there's space available. So by statute, charter schools are inclusive. What the board is doing is actually, if they approve this, they will be approving a contract with the board of the school to govern the school. So you would be giving over your governance authority of the school to that board in exchange for this contractual agreement, this charter, which would spell out some conditions. And so before you do that, the charter school submits an application. Typically, those applications come in for hypothetical schools. And so it's pretty much an overall school design that contemplates the program, the staffing, the budgeting, the governance. And our board would review that to say, does this look like a viable application? This is a little unusual because the school's already been operating, as you've heard, for many years, for 7 years. And so the question before the board is, do we want to welcome the school as a district authorized school as opposed to a state or a charter institute authorized school? In this case, there's a little bit more of a track record on which to base your decision than there is with a typical charter application. According to state law, there are pretty much 3 reasons around which you should base your decision whether or not to authorize a charter school. First is educational program. Is it sound? Is it likely to serve its students? Second, is there sufficient student and parent interest and support? Usually there aren't already 7 years of enrollment behind that. You're usually looking at an application saying, do we think enough people will sign up to send their kids to the school? And the third is, does the school have a viable financial model with sufficient resources going towards its educational program? Is it likely sustainable enough to operate over time? So those are really the 3 criteria that the state gives us. We, in addition, in our policy, also want to look at, is the school inclusive and representative of our community? And does the school provide access to resources and services regardless of which school they attend? So is there a comparable level of resources and services for students attending this school as for other schools in the district? I think that's just what I wanted to sort of frame you, in terms of your decision. The other thing I'll just say about timelining, and Kelsey might have been planning to do this too, is our policy spells out a fairly quick timeline from when the charter application is due, when our staff reviews it, when the board makes a decision. And we had scheduled the decision for tonight just to adhere to our board policy within the timeline, but both we and the school have agreed to extend it to January. So tonight is a discussion and a presentation, and then a decision is scheduled for the first meeting in January. And we do want to urge the board not to postpone it any longer because this is the first round. If the board were to decide to authorize the school, then it would fall to Jamie and me and our staff to negotiate a contract where we get into the details of what services does the school want to purchase from us, what conditions do we need to make around how they're going to manage enrollment and any other things that we build into a contract. I'll also say we have some experience with this through the other charter schools that we already authorized. And so we very much want to have a similar or identical contract with the second school if we go that way as with the first school. So we would involve community school in that contract negotiation too, just so that we can have some parity and some equity between charter schools as the board, tasked us with actually developing the contract.
Great. So as Rob mentioned, state statute and policy dictate the process and timeline for districts at the time for authorization. And so today we're at the place where a charter review committee has put forth a recommendation, which is linked in the board packet. That charter review committee is comprised of staff who oversee specific areas in the district. So I think everyone at this table, as well as some folks on rec team like the flag, PLCP, from the operational directors. So everyone had a chance to go through the application and assess if that section met the criteria in the rubric, which is also linked. And so the board has a rubric that shows 33 subsections total. And the review committee found that of that, 24 adequately addressed the criteria. So you'll see that in green. There were 8 sections in yellow where the committee felt like the criteria were partially addressed. And then there was one area where we felt like the section wasn't addressed. In that recommendation, you see that a lot of that can be negotiated through the contract. Some of that was working together with staff. Also, even though the application is 15 pages, the rubric also asks for a ton of information, and so some of it was just that we didn't have that information in the packet for review. So ultimately, in addition to the criteria that Rob mentioned, the committee felt like there was reason to approve the application. So I'm happy to answer questions about any of that, but it's high level.
So last night I had a chance to present to the district accountability committee. I thought that I preferred in person until I'm sitting in the seat. It's a little threatening, but I'm going to give you.
You got a lot of people on your back, though.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I'm worried about.
I think an important thing for me to do is to begin with acknowledgement that I'd like to start here. This is a small representation of our community and of the enthusiasm that our people bring. A lot of these folks are more than an hour away. They're going to probably drive into the snow or whatever's happening out there. So thank you. I think it is an important demonstration of the commitment that we have to this community school and to this greater community and come here and present our support. I want to thank the board members, all of whom have taken the time to meet with me individually over the last week since I've reached out to them, or even come down and take a tour of the school. I want to thank the two Rivers Community School board members who have participated in this process, who have attended additional meetings and have taken the time to learn more about the possibilities of transfer of authorization from the charter schools to growing forward schools. I want to thank your leadership team for taking the time to read through the entire application and for making themselves available to respond to all of the many questions that I had through the process. And to the PRCS leadership team who has jumped in to fill all the gaps while I've been trying to make this thing happen. So thank you all around, and thank you especially to the PRCS community here at CC. For those of you who were in attendance at last night's DAC, there's a lot of repetition in this. I promise to give you a few twists and turns to make it more exciting. But I think it's an important presentation because it tells the story of who we are as a school and why we're turning tonight. Back in 2014, we opened our doors for the very first time to create a different model for education that was not currently available in this business. We leased the warehouse behind the car dealership in West London Springs, and over the course of a couple of weeks, managed This is Rebecca Rulin and Adriana Ayala Heyer, who were the first two co-directors of our school. I don't believe that there are two individuals who have more passion for public education than I've ever met. No offense to everyone in this room. When we first opened the school, we didn't have a beautiful state-of-the-art facility. Like I said before, we had a warehouse with rubberized floors, cubicle dividers, but we had the blessed years of people just like the ones behind me, including many of them who are here this evening, including our former students who presented to you already. And we made this thing happen. We put it together through incredible amounts of effort. In 2016, we did an expansion to the building. We converted from warehouse style to classroom style. We've got light switches, we've got windows, we've got walls, we've got all the safety features that we'd like to have going to school. And it's going to help Jeff sleep better at night if you guys go forward with this authorization. I want to share with you our vision for education because I think that this is the heart of our school right here, and I think we're doing a very good job trying to achieve that vision. If this Board of Education were to approve our application, we would do a much better job of keeping course with students' decisions. The vision of Two Rivers Community School is to be an exemplary K-8 founded on three pillars: rigor that ignites the passion for learning and high achievement through interdisciplinary experiences, multiple problem-solving methods, second language acquisition, and culminating work aimed at positively impacting the community and the world. Relevant to topics that create a sense of place, embrace diversity, and build a bridge to a broader world perspective. Relationships that foster a sense of belonging and positive collaboration between staff, students, families, and the community. Something that sets us apart and what is unique to our educational model, but not so unique that it would be a sore thumb in the district, which already has quite a bit of educational model diversity from one school to the next, is place-based learning. Most people are familiar with PBL or project-based learning, problem-based learning. We try to take that to the next level by emphasizing the importance of play. A quote from John Food that I think exemplifies who we are: education is a process of living and not the preparation for future living. I'm going to just move through a bunch of images that are from current year all the way back to some of our earlier trips that we've taken students on, to give you a visual representation of some of the work that we do in education. By taking students out of the classroom and providing them experiences that are unforgettable, we guarantee that there is a potential to provide a spark for learning and enthusiasm for something that they might not find within the regular classroom environment. Our students have been up and down the valley throughout this entire region, throughout multiple states and in different countries over the last 8 years of operation. We rely on experts within our community to support the work that we do as teachers in the classroom. In all schools throughout this country, throughout the world, we demand more teachers than is realistically possible. Something we do beautiful at Two Rivers is we recognize that and we try to bring in experts from the community in different professional environments to support the learning of our students and to provide students a different voice and a different opportunity to see someone who is actually a professional in their field. These are some of the components of place-based learning. We try to connect all of our subject work to place, to make connections throughout the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond, but we are very, very good at doing that in science and social studies. Teachers are held accountable to teaching their students the same state standards that any teachers are throughout any public school in the state of Colorado. But what our teachers try to do is make connections to different components of the Douglas Valley. And when we're planning a lesson, these are some of the areas that we're looking for. We want connections like civic engagement, environmental education, service learning, youth voice, interdisciplinary learning, authentic audience, providing our students a chance to present to groups like this. So Antel and Amanda are holding true to this frequent field studies, whether that means taking students out of the building and giving them out to the community or bringing experts into the classroom. Relevance of learning, support from our industry partners, letting experts lead the way, and all of this revolves around the collaboration very few exceptions, nearly all students at Two Rivers take Spanish on a daily basis. Over the last 2 years, the importance of social and emotional learning and the well-being of our students has been heightened by everything that has happened because of the pandemic. Two Rivers Community School has something called Unidad. It's very similar to what you all do for free. Honestly, we probably stole it from the other kids, put a new name on it, and give them something that we thought was good, or now maybe a little better. All of our students, all of our parents, all of our community members make these commitments. And through these commitments, which are based on CASEL's 5 competencies for social and emotional learning, we build school culture. School culture is at the foundation of everything that we do. And I think that by prioritizing relationships and the well-being of our students, we give ourselves a foundation to create something that's truly special. Students have Unidad every day to begin the morning, but it's also something that's woven into the fabric of who we are as a school. Every teacher, just like you have a good teacher in Roaring Fork Schools, all of our teachers participate in the Unidad process, and every student has an Unidad teacher where they begin that day. Beyond that, when a student has a disciplinary issue, which almost never happens, we try to connect the learning for that student back to these competencies and back to the self-implied commitments that they will make to students. When our school first opened its doors in 2014, we had 172 students with limited academic and demographic diversity. Today we have 391 students with significant academic and demographic diversity. Our demographic numbers, when looking at subpopulations, do not mirror that of our community and do not mirror that of the district. That does not mean that that's not something that we are deeply committed to. It's something that we have been working on since 2014. I personally was hired from Guadalajara, Mexico, where I was working with my wife, who's also a teacher in Roaring Fork School. I'm the father of 2 children who hold passports to both Mexico and the United States. And when I was applying for schools in the United States, Two Rivers Community School is the only one that really wanted to talk. Sure. Of our founding directors, one was a Mexican immigrant, one was an American Anglo, who both were deeply committed to social justice. And both worked very closely with all members of our community to establish a school with their input and with their enthusiasm. Y esta noche ya estamos, ¿no? Our numbers since we opened in 2014 have grown. The number of students who are economically disadvantaged is more than double. The number of students who qualify for English language services is more than double. The number of students who are from minority populations has grown. The number of students who are on an individualized education plan is more than quadrupled. Our numbers are at 13%. Nonetheless, there's work to be done in a partnership with the district, which help us continue our goal of trying to serve the community that reflects outside of our school. When you look at enrollment for the current school year, the number of students on IEPs actually did not go higher than it was with our returning population. But if you look at these bar graphs, the blue is newly enrolled students from this year, the red is the returning population. So the number of students who are minority students increased, the number of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch increased counterpartedly, as well as students who qualify for English language services. We have, over the years, established and continue to establish various efforts to reduce barriers to a diverse enrollment. We have subsidized lunch for all students who qualify for free and reduced lunch under federal guidelines. We have transportation, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but in the university charter schools, it really is. We provide transportation to more than 200 students up and down the valley. We have English and Spanish communications for just about everything that we do. I speak Spanish and I communicate hold inclusive events to bring diverse members of our community into the spotlight. We have a weighted lottery for all students who are economically disadvantaged or who come from families whose primary home language is not English. For each of these potential designations, students are given 3. I don't know how to describe it, so it's like a ping pong ball and a bingo machine, so it's a little weird. But it's a ratio of 3 to 1. So if you qualify as a student economically disadvantaged, you can have your name is not 3 times the current student. But if you come from a family whose primary home language is not English, you're also going to have the name 3 times. This has been in place at our school as long as our lottery has been in existence, because our school has continued to be committed to trying to serve a diverse population. We have an after-school homework club that serves students 4 days a week for 0 cost to our families. We have a teacher, Carolyn Burns, who's here somewhere, who stays until 5 o'clock every night to make sure that students who need additional support are provided those supports. This is another barrier reducer that we definitely committed to, something we're going to continue with. We have a community school coordinator role through a partnership with Grinnell's. One of the important roles of our community school coordinator, other than bringing people together, is to ensure that we're reaching the right people, that we're reaching into our community and connecting folks who may not know about us, who may not have worked, who may have not had a chance to hear about here again. Some of the work that we've done already this year would be our back to school barbecue, where we've had a significant number of community partners up and down the valley, connecting to families, connecting to parents to resources that they may not have known about. We have a lift up mobile pantry that happens at our school. We have participated in listening tours for the Latino community. We hold a Hispanic Heritage celebration that has brought in more than 500 people in a thankfully safe outdoor event where many of the members of our community come together to prepare all kinds of delicious food and music and celebrate the culture that exists in our school. The list goes on, and the plans going forward continue to be more and more impressive. Academic achievement is something that's obviously important for this presentation. TRCS has earned a performance rating in all but 1 year when reviewing academic performance, and I think it's worth acknowledging that in 2018, our CMS results came back. We had a significant dip in our performance. We went from being a performance school to being an improvement school because we grew too fast without taking into consideration some of the changes in our demographics and making adjustments to our learning laws to support certain populations. We immediately took action, and this is described in greater detail in the brief in the application that Marlin submitted, but through the course of making significant changes to our approach to teaching students who are greatest at risk, we were back to a performance rating in 2019. I've included data here that shows all of the school growth comparison data from CSI. These are not local schools, these are schools that are up and down the entire state of Colorado. The 2 blue columns that you see over here on the right are English language arts growth rates 5 and 7. It's following students and connecting students from the last time we took CMS tests, which was 2019. But as you can see out of the portfolio of 42 CSI schools, we're in the top of the pack. This is growth data from 6th grade and 8th grade students looking at CMS from 2021, and our 6th grade group were in the middle of the pack, upper average, and in our 8th grade group we're also leading the pack in the fall. I have also brought for you something that I think is important to demonstrate growth in a year like last year. Education has become increasingly difficult with everything that we're dealing with the pandemic. And I think really interim data is probably more important than CMS data, especially because we have accountability pause. But it's important that we identify within our school and we take note of how our students are doing with our own measures. We use iReady, and we did, when we did a reading diagnostic in the I've included a button here for additional local comparative data on our achievement scores for this year, but I personally think I'd rather move forward to the questions and answers than sometime. I included a strategic plan that we developed in 2019, 2020, prior to the pandemic causing a great deal of problems for all of us, because I wanted to demonstrate the school and the board's ability to establish a long-term plan and to achieve them. These were initially intended to be 3-year goals. Many of these goals were accomplished within the first year of the 1920 school. One was to secure a competitive long-term refinancing for our facility debt. Our school successfully did that, saving nearly $200,000 annually because of the debt restructuring, and frankly making us much more viable application for all of these. We have continually worked to develop an HR package that pays them a salary system that honors the work procedures that we have. And that is something that is obviously clearly threatened right now, potential to not have access to the local funds that your school district will need to support the future success. We also are aiming to expand our facilities to better serve students and teachers and have plans in the works, frankly, as additional classes over this summer. I don't want to go too much into the weeds, but our plan has been pointed out to show you that we've made significant progress on some of the issues that were initially set out for a 3-year runway. We did a lot of this first. This is our current draft that our board is regularly meeting about to continue plans moving forward, make sure that we have strategic goals in the long term. We have a unified improvement plan like every public school in Colorado. Our unified improvement plan has a lot of similarities to the academic review of the district. We want to ensure that every student has access to high quality material instruction. That was the same goal that we established a couple of years back when we had that district performance, and now we're taking it a step further and we're trying to ensure that students who are at greatest risk for needing academic support are getting that for tier 2 and tier 3 reading intervention. Now I want to address, I think, some of the more important things that need to be said regarding the reason why we're here in Walden, including this application in front of the board. Colorado has more than 260 charter schools. Out of the 260 charter schools that operate in Colorado, 42 of them are authorized by the state. It is not an unusual thing for a school to transfer out of district into the state's CSI authorization, nor is it unusual for a school to transfer from CSI into the local school district. Local school boards, such as this, by and large, have the vast majority of charter school oversight responsibility when looking at the state as a whole. The portfolio for CSI spans the entire state of Colorado. It includes 15 different educational models. And there's a range of schools. This is one of them. It is great that there's so much choice, that there's so much diversity, and that they serve students throughout the state. But something that we don't have in common with the vast majority of schools that are operated by CSI are the people that we serve, the local connections that are so important to all of us. The last couple of years of dealing with this pandemic has demonstrated to us repeatedly how important it is for us as a community to come together to serve our local populations. We have shared teachers. Some great teachers who work at the CRCS are now working in schools within the district. It's great that used to work for you, now work for us. It's easier for us to seek support from our neighbors than it is for folks who are through the pass over the mountains and down the city. I've learned a lot of information about school finance by walking by Nathan's house and having him take time to school me on CRF and other issues, so I had no idea what that meant in the beginning of the pandemic. I can drive to the district office and I can seek support to help serve my community from experts who exist right here in this community and know the community that I'm serving. Back in 2016, we began conversations with the district formally, and that's only in our first year of operation, to establish a charter compact. A few important outcomes from that compact were that we would agree to work better together, have more collaboration, have more cooperation, have closer connections, because we all agreed at that time, and I hope that we still do today, that we serve the same community, and we have the obligation to do the very best for all of them, regardless of where they go to school, whether it be a public school, private school, or a district school, or a state-authorized charter school. We came up with a shared vision to create a strong, healthy community with collaborative and constructive relationships among all
By now, well, this is something that's coming out of something that, as I've demonstrated, we have been talking about for some time. But also because there is an urgency for our school and for our community to come together like there has never been before. We're working through a global pandemic. We are connected in ways and more connected in ways than I think we ever realized prior to the start of COVID. I have a duty to serve the students and families at my school and the teachers at my school, and it would be negligent of me to not take action to try and pursue options to support our teachers and our students when we're dealing with the learning loss and the impacts of COVID. Everybody in the community, everybody in this room, everybody in this valley has been impacted in ways that go beyond, I think, anybody's initial comprehension. We've seen devastating impacts to students' mental health, to students' academic performance, students' families, and to the great community as a whole. And our students and our teachers deserve the resources and the support that they come from having a formalized partnership with Marlin Gonzalez. I also recognize that there are folks who are going to be concerned that 5B is something that was brought on by district teachers, district staff, and district involved families. I think we've demonstrated tonight that a lot of us are both. My wife works at Crystal River Elementary School as an English language teacher, and some children attend Crystal River Elementary School. Most of the students in our school are going to go to high school or Glen Spring High School. Many of us in this room voted for this school board. Many of us in this room voted to support 5B. The picture on the screen right there is Mr. Coffman's house, the teacher in our school. And I don't think I saw another house that had a bigger house. It doesn't even fit on the patio. It doesn't even fit around the patio. It's been this thing to fit. If you would have come into my neighborhood at any point during the campaign, you would have seen a significant number of signs. And if you would have knocked on the state doors, many of my neighbors, they would have told you that I've already filled them in with everything they need to know. Individually, many of us supported 5B. Many of us made significant contributions to support the work. But at the same time, I should acknowledge that even though I was going through the application process, the last thing in the world that I wanted to do for something that I believe is so important to our community was to hinder the progress of a ballot issue that was going to change the educational landscape for us. I could have been screaming from the rooftops long before 5B was formalized, saying that Two Rivers is going to apply and we want to be a part of this. I didn't think that was my responsibility. I thought that my role for supporting this ballot issue was to quietly promote it as much as humanly possible. I've openly talked to my teachers about the reasons that as a school, we don't want to go out and create waves. Because we believe that whether or not we have access to these funds, this is something that needs to happen. Teachers throughout the Northern Fork Valley deserve a pay raise. Two Rivers teachers deserve it just as much, and that's why I'm here today. I think that's all of it. I left a lot out, but that's what I was going to focus on. Right? So thank you.
So, this is a question for Jamie. I think now's the time. I want to be aware of time. We are running behind.
I had all my questions answered when we met yesterday, so I appreciate you taking your time out of there. Just got done driving the school bus.
Yeah, I think that I did as well.
I did just have a clarifying question, and thank you so much, Jamie, for meeting with us. Excellent tour of your school. Thank you all for joining us. Nathan, you clarified the mill levy dollar allocation. But I did have a question on the memo, Rob, that you provided, saying that Two Rivers per pupil funding would increase, giving it the same level as other schools in the district. Can you just explain a little bit more about?
I think the big difference is they would have access to the mill levy funding. And so as a district, as a state authorized school, they don't have access to the district mill levy override funding. And so that would net them $2,600 to $2,800 per student more if they were authorized
that was coming in the mill levy.
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
mill levy part. I actually think you're probably funded the same for pupil level as we are, but I'm not positive that's right, yeah.
And that's the previous mill levy dollars plus the new one.
Right, all mill levy dollars, and that's state law that we would have to share all, not just the new ones.
I too felt I got my questions answered, so thank you for taking that time. But one question I do have, there was a little bit of confusion in reading. I thought there was maybe two different things I thought. If we authorize this school to join us in our district, what type of contract are we given? I think I read 4 years, I think I read 5 years and different things. And are those 2 years set before we then have further discussion for renewing the contract?
I'm going to ask Michael Hayes to help with that, and I'll say what I think the answer is, because Michael oversees the other charter school we authorized. My understanding is that our tradition has been a 5-year contract with our charter schools. I imagine we could set a shorter time window than that, let's say a first go-round. I would advise against it, because 5 years, I can't believe we're up for renegotiation next year on a 5-year contract with the community school. It's just not very long. And in this case, especially when there's a track record of performance, it's not like it's a new school that needs really close monitoring for a short period of time. How'd I do, Michael? Okay, go ahead.
I looked at this after seeing this issue earlier, and I think that what our policies say is a minimum of 4 years.
Okay.
So I think it's a minimum of 4 years, but we can obviously set a longer time. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
And then I have one more question for you. You talked about that lottery being 3 ping pong balls to one, or however we are deciding to say that. I think, Michael, you said at your school you have changed the lottery a little bit to match the demographics as needed by taking away the ping pong balls and admitting students to reach those demographic balances. And is that something that you think is a possibility that you'd be able to do at your school also?
I think that there's some legal challenges because the way that we've structured our lottery is kind of the maximum of what we can do in the lottery process itself. But I think the work that Brenda Kaiser is doing in her role as municipal coordinator, and hopefully as some of the COVID restrictions ease away from us, we'll be able to have all the kind of lot more in-person events where we feel that they're going to have to getting folks to complete those potential enrollments in the first place and anticipate their lottery process. Frankly, I also think that just the fact that this meeting is happening right now, and there's probably somebody from a newspaper here is going to read more publicity and will be better informed in our school as people learn that we are connected to the district that are public school, that we're not a private school, we're not, and we are actively seeking services for ourselves.
Thank you.
And I just have one question on process. I mentioned everyone already that we've kind of delayed our official action on this until our next meeting in January. And then after that action is taken, there will be contract negotiations. Is the board no longer a part of the process at that point, or do we have?
No, the board will approve the contract. And if a board member wanted to participate in the discussion, that would be fine too. Typically, you've got the staff to work that out, and then brought you the contract, and if any issues presented, and we brought you those along the way. But you're welcome to, just one more
Board would have
person to
one more
schedule
vote.
around.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Process question.
I guess I do have a question. With looking at the rubric and those areas that were partially or not at all, are those being addressed in this application or in the contract part?
I think those are all things that we can address through the contract, and I also, to be really fair, think that any of our schools put through this level of scrutiny would have had some partial marks on their rubrics too. And so I don't want the board to think it's unusual that some staff with some high standards found some less than perfect aspects of the application.
Have any other questions? Well, like everyone else said, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, everyone, for coming and being here. Because we've got all your written comments. We appreciate all the verbal comments and everyone's taking time to be here and share with us. Thank you. We're gonna take just a 5-minute break to use the restroom, stretch for a second, and then we'll come back. How you doing, Jasmine? Well, I'm actually trying to do social media.
you doing? Are you still on board? Yeah, you are. There you go.